In the shadows of a city teetering on the brink, Jinwoo strides alone. The neon lights flicker around him, casting eerie reflections. His eyes glimmer with an otherworldly green as he senses the faintest trace of danger. The world moves in slow motion, every breath, every sound. But something is wrong. The pulse of death thrums through him louder than ever before. His empathy feels dulled, a distant memory. Hae-In watches him from afar, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. She knows the change is real. In a world where darkness creeps into every shadow, Sung Jin-Woo has become an enigma. His power grows, but so does his solitude. His eyes glow with an eerie green hue when he uses his powers, hinting at the deathly nature of what lies within him. Hae-In notices something different about him. Her heart clenches as she sees the coldness in his eyes. Jinho observes the subtle shifts too, his mind torn between loyalty and duty. Jinwoo himself remains oblivious to these changes, until a moment with Hae-In stirs something within him. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the city. Jinwoo stood atop a skyscraper, overlooking the bustling streets. His eyes glowed faintly, a subtle sign of the death power coursing through him. Jinwoo felt a strange numbness in his heart. He was becoming less sensitive to the emotions around him. He walked through the city streets, his senses dulled by an overwhelming calm. Hae-In found him at a small cafe. She looked worried as she approached. "Jinwoo," she said softly, "I've noticed something's off." He looked up, eyes still glowing faintly. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice devoid of its usual warmth. "You've been distant. It's like you're not there anymore." She reached out to him, but he pulled back. "I'm fine," he replied coldly. Hae-In stepped back, hurt flashing across her face. "No, you're not," she whispered. "Something's happening to you." Jinwoo turned away, the weight of her words pressing down on him. "I need to go," he said. "There's something I have to do." "Jinwoo," Hae-In called out as he left. The sun set behind the city skyline, casting long shadows that stretched over rooftops and alleyways. Jinwoo stood atop a building, scanning the horizon with an unyielding gaze. A sudden noise from below snapped him out of his thoughts. He leapt down silently to confront the disturbance. Hae-In found him there, her face etched with worry. "Jinwoo," she whispered, unsure how to proceed. "What is it?" he replied curtly, his tone devoid of warmth. "I'm just worried," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's no time for worry now," he responded without looking at her. Hae-In's eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hopelessness as she watched him walk away. Jinho observed from afar. His expression was a mix of loyalty and doubt as he watched Jinwoo. "He's changed," Jinho murmured to himself, his voice tinged with worry. A sudden explosion in the distance caught Jinwoo's attention. He immediately sprang into action. The threat was a group of shadow creatures. Jinwoo faced them with grim determination. "This ends now," he declared as his eyes glowed an eerie green. His movements were swift and lethal. Each strike was calculated and efficient. The battle was over. The city returned to its eerie silence. But as he turned to leave, a distant figure appeared in the dark. A new threat was on the horizon. The city was shrouded in a perpetual twilight as Jinwoo walked through the streets with purposeful strides. Hae-In watched him from afar, her heart heavy with worry. Hae-In decided to confront him. She needed answers about his growing coldness and the changes she observed. She approached Jinwoo cautiously. He stood motionless, his eyes glowing a faint green. "Jinwoo," she started softly, "what's happening to you?" Her voice quivered with concern. Jinwoo turned to face her, his expression devoid of emotion. "I have a job to do," he replied coldly. Hae-In stepped closer, trying to reach out to him. "But what about us? What about our friends?" Jinwoo's eyes flickered with a hint of frustration. Us. There is no us anymore, he stated harshly. Hae-In's eyes filled with tears. Please, try to hold on, she pleaded, her voice breaking. Jinwoo turned away, his steps quickening. I have to go, he said before vanishing into the shadows. Hae-In was left alone in the alleyway, her heart aching with each step he took away from her. The next day, reports of a new threat arrived. A massive shadow creature was spotted on the outskirts of the city. Jinwoo was summoned to the Hunter Association. Jinho watched him warily as he entered. Jinwoo, we need your help, said the council leader. This creature is unlike anything we've seen before. Jinwoo nodded curtly. I'll take care of it, he replied, already planning his strategy. As he left the Hunter Association, Jinho followed him. Be careful, he muttered under his breath. The Hunter Association's council chamber buzzed with hushed conversations as Jinwoo entered. Eyes turned to him. His gaze was cold and detached. The chairman cleared his throat. Jinwoo, we need to discuss your recent actions. Jinwoo's eyes glowed faintly as he responded. What actions? I'm here to protect. Hae-In stood beside him. Her voice was firm but laced with worry. You're not seeing clearly. Your empathy is fading. The council members exchanged nervous glances. They had seen Jinwoo's cold determination. We must take precautionary measures. Your powers are too dangerous. Jinwoo's expression hardened. I will not be restrained. Hae-In placed a hand on his shoulder. Please understand. Jinwoo's eyes flared with green. His voice was a low growl. I am still me. I will protect you all. The chairman nodded to the guards. We have no choice. Guards moved towards Jinwoo. He braced himself. Hae-In stepped in front of him. Wait, there must be another way. The Hunter Association's headquarters was tense with anticipation. The council had dismissed the room, leaving Hae-In and Jinho to plot their next move. Hae-In approached Jinho, her eyes pleading. We have to find a way to save him. Jinho's expression was conflicted. We don't know what this power is doing to him. Hae-In's voice was resolute. But he is still Jinwoo. We have to believe that. Jinwoo stood alone in his chamber. His eyes glowed with an eerie green hue, the power within him pulsing ominously. He clenched his fists, the power threatening to consume him. Hae-In and Jinho met with a few trusted allies in the secret meeting room. They whispered a plan to restore Jinwoo's humanity without using force. But there were dissenting voices. You're being naive, he's a threat now. Hae-In's eyes hardened. We must try. As they prepared to act, a new threat appeared on the horizon. The Shadow Monarch's power was growing uncontrollably. Jinwoo felt it as a surge within him, pushing him closer to breaking point. Hae-In rushed to him, her heart pounding. He turned to her, his eyes glowing brighter. I'm losing control. The dark forest loomed ahead, its twisted trees casting eerie shadows beneath the moonlight. Jinwoo stood motionless, his eyes glowing an eerie green as he sensed the approaching threat. A massive shadow creature emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and grotesque. With a roar, the creature lunged at Jinwoo with clawed hands and jagged teeth. Jinwoo's hands flared with dark energy as he countered the attack with a powerful blast. The creature staggered back, but it was far from defeated. It hissed and prepared for another attack. Jinwoo's movements were efficient but cold, each strike precise and devoid of empathy. The creature's attacks grew more desperate as the battle wore on. Jinwoo felt the coldness seeping deeper into his soul with each passing moment. The creature suddenly changed course and lunged at him from a different angle. Jinwoo narrowly avoided the claws and retaliated with a swift kick. The kick sent the creature flying back into a tree with a loud crack. As the dust settled, Jinwoo stood there, panting but victorious. But deep within him, he could feel the empathy slipping away with each passing moment. He looked up to the moon, his resolve wavering as he fought against his own powers. The wind whispered through the cold forest as Jinwoo stood alone under the moon's watchful gaze. His eyes glowed faintly green as he felt the shadows around him stir. He took a deep breath. Suddenly, Hae-In appeared beside him. Her face was set in a determined but worried expression. "Jinwoo," she said softly, "you're changing." Her voice was laced with a mix of fear and hope. Jinwoo's gaze did not waver. He felt the coldness inside him like an ice wall. "I know," he replied, his voice devoid of emotion, "but there's so much to protect." Hae-In stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his arm. "You can't do this alone." Her voice was a plea. Jinwoo's eyes flickered with a hint of warmth as he looked at her. He hesitated. "You're right," he finally admitted, his voice low. "But the cost," he trailed off. Hae-In's eyes filled with tears as she realized the weight of his burden. "Let me help you," she whispered. Jinwoo looked away. The shadows seemed to press in around them. "We don't have much time," he said grimly. "A new threat is coming." Hae-In's resolve hardened. "Then we face it together," she said with conviction. Jinwoo's gaze softened slightly as he looked at her, a rare flicker of hope in his eyes. But as they turned to face the rising threat, the shadows seemed to grow darker and more menacing. The city was calm under the cloak of night. Jinwoo stood atop a building, eyes glowing green as he scanned for threats. He felt the strain of his powers, a constant hum in his mind. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets. A shadow creature appeared in a back alley. Jinwoo moved swiftly, striking without hesitation. His moves were precise and cold. The creature fell without a sound. But in the aftermath, a civilian lay injured. Jinwoo's coldness had cost another life. Hae-In and Jinho watched from a distance, their faces etched with concern. They had to decide, support Jinwoo or stop him before he becomes an unstoppable force of destruction. Hae-In stepped forward, her voice a mix of pleading and resolve. "We have to stop this. We can't lose Jinwoo," she said. Jinho's expression was conflicted. He nodded slowly. They made their way down to the streets, planning an intervention. Jinwoo was unaware of their approach, still lost in his growing power. The shadows grew darker around him as he felt the power surge. Hae-In and Jinho reached him just as he turned to face them. Jinwoo's eyes locked onto theirs, and the tension in the air was palpable. The city was quiet tonight, a rare calm before the storm. Jinwoo stood on the rooftop, staring at the moon. He felt the weight of his actions pressing down on him. His hands trembled slightly as he clenched his fists. He could almost see the green glow of power behind his eyelids. A sudden noise from below caught his attention. Someone was in trouble. He leapt down from the rooftop, landing silently in an alley. A figure lay wounded on the ground. Jinwoo hesitated. His heart felt as cold and heavy as stone. He took a deep breath and approached the injured person. A wave of dizziness hit him. His vision blurred as he struggled to regain his balance. This was new. The injured person's voice was weak but urgent. "Please, help me," they whispered. Jinwoo felt the power surge within him. It was happening again. He clenched his fists tighter and fought back the overwhelming urge to let go. Hae-In and Jinho watched from afar. They could sense the struggle within him. Jinwoo managed to suppress the power, but the strain was visible in his eyes. He lifted the injured person and moved them to safety, his movements mechanical. As he placed them down, his body shuddered. He barely managed to regain control. Hae-In and Jinho approached him. "Jinwoo," Hae-In called out softly. Hae-In stood at the edge of the cliff, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She knew what she had to do. Jinho approached her with a somber expression. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "We don't have a choice," she replied, her voice steady. He's slipping away from us. They moved quietly towards Jinwoo's location. The air was thick with anticipation. Jinwoo stood alone in the center of an abandoned warehouse, his eyes glowing with a green hue. He sensed their approach and turned, his face a mask of cold determination. "We need to talk," said Hae-In as she stepped closer. Jinwoo's expression didn't change. "There's nothing to talk about," he replied. "That's not true," Hae-In insisted. "You're losing yourself." Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. "I'm doing what needs to be done," he growled. Hae-In and Jinho exchanged a tense glance. This confrontation was inevitable. "You can't keep this up," Hae-In said, her voice soft but firm. Jinwoo's response was a sudden burst of power. The ground trembled. "Stay back," he warned, his voice echoing off the walls. "We won't let you go this far," Hae-In declared, stepping closer. With a sudden rush of power, Jinwoo vanished. The warehouse was empty. Jinwoo stood on the rooftop, his eyes glowing a faint green as he faced off against Hae-In and Jinho. The moon cast a pale glow over their tense standoff. Jinwoo's body was visibly strained from the effort to maintain control. Hae-In's voice was steady but tinged with worry. "Jinwoo, you can still fight this." Her words echoed in the silence. Jinwoo's gaze flickered between them, a rare moment of self-doubt. "I don't know how much longer I can hold it back," he confessed. The tension in the air was palpable as Jinho stepped forward. "We'll help you," he said firmly. A sudden gust of wind whipped through their hair as the city loomed below. The ground beneath Jinwoo's feet began to tremble. A massive shadow creature emerged from the darkness. Its presence filled the rooftop with an aura of dread. Jinwoo felt his power surge, a mix of hope and dread. He had to choose, retain his humanity or unleash his full potential. The night was cold as Jinwoo stood on the rooftop, his eyes glowing with an eerie green light. A new shadow creature emerged from the shadows, its form twisted and menacing. Jinwoo took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his power and the struggle within. He clenched his fists, the glow in his eyes intensifying as he prepared to fight. Hae-In and Jinho watched from a distance, their faces etched with concern. The shadow creature lunged at Jinwoo with a roar. Jinwoo moved with deadly precision, his movements swift and efficient. He delivered a series of strikes that were both powerful and calculated. Each hit sent tremors through the creature, but it did not fall. Jinwoo's mind was a battlefield of his own making. He felt a growing coldness seep into his heart with each passing moment. Hae-In watched silently, her resolve strengthening with each second. Jinwoo finally managed to land a decisive blow, but it came at a cost. The creature dissipated into the darkness, leaving behind a heavy silence. Jinwoo stood there, his breaths coming out in ragged gasps. In the aftermath of his battle, Jinwoo's strength wanes as he collapses on the rooftop, struggling to breathe. Hae-In rushes to his side, concern etched on her face as she tries to help him regain consciousness. Jinho watches from a distance, conflicted as he considers whether to intervene or let them handle it. Hae-In's hands tremble as she tries to stabilize Jinwoo, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. Jinwoo's eyes flicker green as he struggles to regain control over his powers, a sign of the immense effort it takes. Hae-In speaks softly to him, her voice soothing as she tries to bring back the man he used to be. Jinwoo finally opens his eyes, looking at Hae-In with a rare moment of clarity and self-doubt. The two share a silent moment as they both feel the weight of their situation. Jinho approaches cautiously, his loyalty to Jinwoo warring with the duty he owes to the Hunter Association. Together, they decide to take a break from the constant battles and threats, focusing on Jinwoo's recovery. As they walk towards a secluded safe house, a new shadow looms on the horizon. The atmosphere is thick with unease, as they all sense the growing danger. Jinwoo's eyes glow green again as he senses the threat closing in, and the group readies themselves for another fight. The group faces their new enemy together, determined to overcome this latest challenge. As they prepare for battle, the question looms: can Jinwoo maintain his humanity while fighting this new threat? The sun set over the city as Jinwoo sat alone on a rooftop, staring into the distance. His eyes flickered with a faint green hue, hinting at his inner turmoil. Hae-In approached him quietly, her eyes filled with worry and hope. She knew this might be their last chance to reconnect. Jinwoo turned to her, his face a mix of cold determination and deep uncertainty. "I need to regain control," he said, voice steady but strained. Hae-In nodded solemnly. "We'll help you," she whispered, reaching out to touch his hand. The three of them planned their next move in a dimly lit room. Jinho watched Jinwoo warily, conflicted between loyalty and duty. As they prepared to leave, a sudden shadow creature attack forced them into action. The streets lit up with the clash of power. Jinwoo fought with a mix of cold efficiency and desperate moments of empathy. He was torn between two paths. Hae-In and Jinho fought beside him, their actions both support and a reminder of the humanity he once had. The battle ended with Jinwoo standing alone, breathing heavily. He looked down at his hands, the green glow fading. Hae-In rushed to him. "You did it," she said softly, a smile of relief on her face. Jinwoo nodded, his eyes holding a flicker of hope. "But the fight isn't over," he warned. A dark presence loomed in the shadows. The new threat was closing in, and they could feel its icy breath. They turned to face the looming darkness. Jinwoo's eyes glowed again, but this time with a hint of determination. As the darkness closed in, Jinwoo took a deep breath. "Together," he whispered. The chapter ends with the trio standing ready as the new threat emerges from the shadows. The sky was a deep, ominous shade as Jinwoo stood on the rooftop, gazing at the horizon where an immense shadow creature emerged. Hae-In and Jinho joined him, ready for the final battle. Hae-In placed a hand on his shoulder. "We believe in you, Jinwoo," she said, her voice steady. Jinwoo closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of her hand. For a moment, he was just Jinwoo again. He turned to the approaching shadow creature. The green glow in his eyes intensified as he readied himself. The creature lunged at him. Jinwoo moved with lightning speed, dodging and countering with precision. Hae-In and Jinho fought alongside him, their actions synchronized as they pushed back the shadow creature. Jinwoo unleashed a powerful strike, the ground shaking with each blow. The creature roared in agony. With a final burst of energy, he delivered the finishing blow. The shadow creature dissipated into nothingness. The rooftop was silent as they caught their breath. Hae-In looked at him with renewed hope. "We did it," she whispered. "We still have a long way to go," Jinwoo replied softly. "But with you, I can face anything." Jinho approached them. "We'll keep fighting together," he said with a rare smile. They stood united as the sky brightened with dawn. "This is only the beginning," Jinwoo murmured, his eyes still glowing faintly. "We'll face the next battle together," Hae-In replied, holding his hand firmly.